and the engines had conked out. "We're missing a princess," Mikhail hissed to his men. In the grand tradition of Navy desperation, Ensign Parker was drafted, wrapped in silk veils, wearing enough perfume to choke a horse, and sporting a pair of very hairy legs. Princess Parker joined the dance. The dinner was a nightmare of veils and confusion. "There's something wrong with this one," Binghamton muttered, eyeing the veiled Parker. "She has the muscle tone of a torpedo man." "Captain, please!" Mikhail intervened. "She's shy." The Sultan was delighted until Binghamton, in an attempt to expose the ruse, accidentally ripped the veil off Parker. "Aha, I knew it. It's a phony. It's an ensign." The Sultan stood up, his face thunderous. "You dare debase the dignity of my daughters? This hairy-legged infidel is an insult to Mirani." The diplomatic incident was only resolved when the real Princess Siri returned, claiming she had been meditating in the engine room. Binghamton was left holding a handful of silk and a very angry Sultan's sword. Chapter 4. Laughing Gas and Lateral Promotions. The tension on the base reached a fever pitch. Parker had committed one blunder, too many this time, nearly running over Binghamton with the PT-73 during a docking maneuver. "That's it!" Binghamton screamed, dripping wet and shaking his fist at the boat. "A fitness board! I'm convening a fitness board to break you down to Seaman Second Class, Parker. You're finished." Mikhail knew he had to do something drastic. The crew's morale was at an all-time low. They needed Binghamton in a good mood, a very good mood. "Nitrous oxide," Mikhail noted, eyeing the medical supplies. "Laughing gas. Compliments of the base dentist." The plan was executed with military precision. While Binghamton was in his office, the 73 crew landscaped outside his window, using a pressurized tank of laughing gas instead of insecticide. "Breathe deeply, Captain," Mikhail shouted through the window. "There's a plague of frangipani flies. We're spraying for your safety." Within minutes, Binghamton's office was filled with the sweet, intoxicating vapor. The captain, usually the most miserable man in the Pacific, began to giggle. Then he began to hoot. Then he began to roar with laughter. "Mikhail, Chucky-Wucky," Binghamton shouted, leaning out the window and waving. "You torpedoed a garbage scow? That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Give that man a medal. Cancel the fitness board. I love everyone. I love the Navy. I love flies." The timing was perfect, or would have been, if Admiral Shoemaker hadn't arrived for the fitness hearing at that exact moment. He found the base commander dancing on his desk, wearing a wastebasket as a hat, and trying to feed a cigar to a stray cat. "Binghamton," Shoemaker barked. "What is the meaning of this?" "Admiral, Shoiwoe." Binghamton giggled, trying to pinch the Admiral's cheek. "You're just in time. Parker is a hero. He stood in the face of death and laughed. Anyone who laughs at death is a combat officer. Promote him." Mikhail and his men stood back, trying to keep straight faces. The gas was working better than they had dared hope. Parker was not only cleared, he was hailed as a paragon of naval courage. Binghamton, meanwhile, was sent back to the hospital for a long rest and a very large sedative. Chapter 5. The alligator named Sydney. Just when they thought things couldn't get any weirder, the $62,000 base payroll arrived. Or rather, it arrived and then promptly vanished. "I had it right here," Parker wailed, clutching his head. "I was taking the shortcut past the racetrack in Noumea, and I tripped, and then there was this girl with a heart-shaped birthmark on her ankle, and then it was gone." Binghamton was delighted. "Larceny. Grand larceny. Mikhail, your executive officer has stolen the payroll. I've marked the bills. You're all going to the brig for 99 years. The only witness to the crime was a local inhabitant of the swamp, a large, remarkably friendly alligator that the crew had named Sydney." "Sydney's got the wallet," Gruber shouted, pointing to the swamp. "The alligator's got it in his mouth." The crew spent the next 12 hours in a desperate, muddy struggle to retrieve the payroll from a reptile. "Nice, Sydney? Good, Sydney. Give us the 62 grand. That's a boy." When they finally brought Sydney into the courtroom as a witness, the scene was pure chaos. "I object," Binghamton screamed. You can't put an alligator on the stand. He's a reptile. He's biased. The defense calls Sidney to the stand. Parker shouted, holding a peanut butter sandwich, the only thing Sidney would listen to. As the alligator crawled toward the bench, Binghamton panicked. He jumped onto his chair, screaming. In the confusion, Sidney coughed up the wallet. It was found to contain the marked bills, but it also contained evidence that Binghamton had tried to trap the crew with the money in the first place. Aha, the judge advocate noted. So, it was a frame-up, Captain? Trying to trap your own men with a payroll? Binghamton was once again left defeated. While Sidney was officially inducted as the base mascot, much to the captain's horror. Chapter 6. The Ghost of PT. 13. The final straw came when Binghamton decided to renumber the boats. In a fit of bureaucratic spite, he declared that the 73 boat was actually the long-lost, jinxed PT-13. The 13 boat, Binghamton sneered. A haunted craft. 2 crews lost at sea. Blown up, drowned, and cursed. And now, it belongs to you, McHale. The crew was legitimately spooked. Sailors are a superstitious lot, and the legend of the Jonah ship hit them hard. We're doomed, Skip, Virgil moaned. The whammy is on us. McHale, however, knew a ruse when he saw one. He decided to play Binghamton's own game. That night, they rigged the PT-73 with glowing phosphorus paint, hidden speakers, and remote-controlled whistles. As Binghamton walked along the pier, the ghost ship began to move on its own. Wah, al, ye. The ghost of PT-13. Binghamton screamed, falling to his knees. I'm sorry, I made it up. The boat isn't jinxed. I lied. Please don't take me to the big PT boat in the sky. The transfers, Wally. The voice boomed. Give us the transfer papers for McHale's crew. We need them for our records in purgatory. In a blind panic, Binghamton threw the papers into the air and ran for his life, convinced he was being haunted by the restless spirits of the Navy's past. Epilogue: The Eternal War. A week later, the sun was still beating down on Taratupa. The mud was still thick, the mosquitoes were still hungry, and Captain Binghamton's stomach acid was back to a simmer. He sat in his office, staring out at the harbor. There, moored at the pier, was the PT-73. He could hear the distant sound of laughter, the clinking of glasses, likely filled with something not found in the supply catalogue, and the occasional roar of an alligator. Wow, Binghamton whispered. Wow, wow, wow. He looked at Carpenter. Do you think we'll ever get them, Elroy? Carpenter polished his glasses. Well, sir, there's a shipment of rubber boots coming in next week. Maybe we could frame them for... Shut up, Carpenter. Binghamton sighed, leaning back and closing his eyes. Just shut up. In the distance, the PT-73 roared to life, heading out into the blue expanse of the Pacific. Quinton McHale was at the helm. Parker was tripping over a rope, and for a brief moment, all was right in the world, or at least as right as things ever got on Taratupa. The war went on, but the pirates were still at sea, and old Leadbottom was still in his office, and the South Pacific continued to be the funniest place on earth. The Taratupa Tangel, a PT-73 Odyssey. Chapter 1. The Admiral and the Ulcer. The South Pacific sun beat down on Taratupa Island with the kind of relentless fervor that made men dream of ice baths and court-martials, mostly the former. Though for Captain Wallace B. Binghamton, the two were often inextricably linked. Binghamton, known to his men as Old Leadbottom, though never to his face unless the speaker had a death wish, sat in his office, his face a shade of purple that suggested a ticking time bomb. Across from him stood Lieutenant Carpenter, a man whose primary military skill was nodding in sycophantic agreement. Wow, 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 Binghamton muttered, staring at a stack of requisition forms. Garter belts, Carpenter. The nurses are demanding garter belts. I am the commanding officer of a strategic naval base in the middle of a global conflict, and I am being haunted by the hosiery needs of the medical corps. You're the supply officer, sir, Carpenter reminded him helpfully. If they need them, we have to. Well, snap to it, shake a leg, so to speak.